Good afternoon. Good afternoon to many of you. Good morning to some of you. Good night, maybe also to some of you. We're welcome to this LinkedIn live event. We are very happy to have you with us today. And today we are tackling a subject that many people either love or hate. Maybe because innovation has become a buzzword to some extent, and maybe also because nobody exactly knows what it means, or rather, everybody can have its own definition of what innovation is. If you just Google it, for example, you will find 300,000 versions of what innovation can be. So this being said, nobody would question the fact that innovation is one of the top priorities of corporate decision makers. The latest studies show that up to 75% of CEOs view innovation as one of their top 3 priorities for the years to come. But strangely enough, only 17% of them think their company has the right innovation culture and that their company can deliver on innovation. So how can organizations foster a culture of innovation? How do you identify if something is really and truly innovative? How do you take an innovation from the lab to scaling it at the enterprise level? What are the new technologies that organizations should bet on to innovate? And what's the role of the Chief Innovation Officer in all of this? So I cannot guarantee that we will answer all those questions in just 1 hour. But this is the mission that we are giving to some extent to our great moderator today, Sally Eves, who will now introduce our panel and lead our session. Sally, up to you.
Thank you so much, Pascal. And again, very warm welcome, everyone. I'm Professor Sally Eves, CEO of Aspirational Futures and Tomorrow's Tech Today. And again, delighted to moderate what I think is a very timely discussion. So it's my pleasure now to introduce a very stellar panel. Firstly, we have Mei Zhang, who is SVP of Global Digital Innovation and Commercialization at Medtronic, which is a global healthcare technology leader and pioneer. Welcome, Mei.
Thank you, Sally. It's good to have to be here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And equally, a very warm welcome to Ernesto Choro, who is Chief Innovability Officer at Enel Group, a multinational company which is really changing the face of energy. Welcome, Ernesto.
Thanks for inviting me. Ciao.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you. And we want you to be part of the conversation too. So please do post your comments and questions in the LinkedIn chat box. And it has a double benefit as well. For this LinkedIn live event in particular, as part of Capgemini's Breathe Innovation campaign, every relevant chatbot question will be rewarded with a tree planted on your behalf. So I absolutely love that. I wanted to showcase that right at the start too. So let's move into our conversation. So much to discuss today. And we're going to divide this into 4 core pillars: culture, scalability, planet, and technology. And obviously, these intersect as well. And that will be followed by our Q&A. So again, queue up those questions for us. So I'll go into our first one now. We're going to do this round robin style. What I'd love to do is explore innovation as a culture, how to create it, how to sustain it, what does the right setup look like, and what does it mean from a people perspective as well. Ernesto, if I could go over to you first.
Thanks. First of all, when we wanted to start the cultural change, we addressed 2 kinds of limits that we have in our culture. First of all, people were scared by the failure. They didn't want to fail because we have a culture of service to our countries, and failure is not an option. When people want to turn on the electricity should be on. But unfortunately, if you want to innovate, you need to fail. Innovation is like playing poker. Managing a company is like playing chess. When you play chess, you can plan all your turns. But when you play poker, you have to check your cards and you have to discard and fail because you are paying the pot. And you must fail and fail till you have a success. We wanted to push people not to be scared in front of a failure. That's why we launched My Best Failure program. We were rewarding people if they fail trying something new and if they share their failures. Because if you share, the company will not do again the same failure. And if you share and you reward such people become new idols, new way of behaviors, because when you want to innovate, it's normal to fail. And killing projects after 2 months or 3 months, this is not saying that who has imagined this project is guilty. No, we are saying that who is killing this project is great, because we are saving time, we are saving money. So we had an international award called My Best Failure Program, and everybody could share failures and everybody could vote. And the most learning, the most useful failures have been rewarded. Secondly, unfortunately, our culture was aimed at saying yes to the boss or to the keepers of the truth, like the academy, the famous universities. I give you an example. We wanted to combine geothermal energy with photovoltaic solar energy, and with concentrated solar energy. 3 ways to produce energy from the sun and from the earth. And we asked MIT, is it possible to hybridize in a plant these 3 technologies? And they say no. And our major experts were saying no, it's impossible. That's why we wanted to make a challenge to these no's, because we wanted to push our people to always challenge ourselves, to always challenge the truth keepers. And we asked our global ecosystem of startups, research centers, crowdsourcing, and thanks to this ecosystem, we found a startup from Israel, another from the United States, an independent innovator from the United States. He was a nuclear engineer who was serving in the US Army. And we found 3 ways to make possible what MIT said it was impossible. And we have implemented such plant in Nevada. The plant name is Stillwater, and in Fallon, where there is also a US Army base. And thanks to this plant, we have demonstrated to MIT and to the other research people and very famous universities that were saying no, that if you want, you can make it. You can shift from a no to a yes. And in the last years, we are shifting many no's to many yes, and pushing people to say no to me and to the other top managers. Because if they say always you, unfortunately, nothing will change in a company.
I love that. I love that expression in particular about challenging the truth makers. I think that's excellent. Very, very well said. I think particularly with the energy situation at the moment, that pragmatism and experimentation could not be more needed. So great example there. May, if I could hand over to you to explore your take around innovation culture.
Thank you. I think innovation is culture. So what kind of organizational traits do we want? I believe we need a culture that is agile, learning-oriented, customer-obsessed, data-driven, and experimental. Like Ernesto just mentioned, in innovation, failure is part of success. So how do we create a safe environment, right, where people can actually, trust each other, do crazy things, and risk-taking is encouraged and rewarded. And failures are readily accepted as an integral part of learning. But we all need to learn to fail small, fail cheap, and recover fast and make a pivot. Sometimes people call it how we actually learn to operate as a lean startup. So where do we start? I think we can start by identifying those unwanted habits. We call them innovation blockers. For example, we need to definitely stay away and stop the controller's leadership style, command and control, because innovation is about keeping open-minded, right? Open to all kinds of new ideas. And then we also need to design behavior enablers, right? The new ways to promote the new, better innovation behaviors: humility, integrity, openness, passion, energy, diversity, collaboration, resilience in adversity, right? Because we want to not only innovate, we want to actually go with our sustainable innovation. And sustainable innovation is all about innovation at scale, powering good at population scale.
I love that. I love the shared value that you bring to the fore there. I couldn't agree more strongly. Absolutely, Inesta, that's spot on. I love the fact you mentioned about the learning culture as part of this as well. And some of the skills there, you mentioned so-called soft skills that would be mentioned in the past, like the phrase I absolutely hate, very STEAM orientated. I love that because you need those tech skills, but you also need empathy, emotional intelligence and communication skills to make these things a reality too. So great points there, May. Thank you. And Pascal, could I bring you back in maybe to look at it from a C-suite perspective as well?
Yeah, well, to add on what Ernesto and May just said, I think everybody within a company is looking at signals. And signals from the top are very important when it comes to innovation. It's very difficult to claim you have an innovation culture if you don't send signals about the fact that you care. So the first thing I'd like to say that I think that signal from the top, starting with the CEO, is absolutely crucial. If the CEO doesn't seem to care about innovation, well, people would always stay in that feeling where, okay, they say we can fail, but is that really true? So I think signal is one. The second one is that to go beyond signal, I think the attitude that C-suite needs to have is what I would call the 3P1, which is to give permission, to give power, and to give protection. And in any order you like, but people need to understand that it's permitted to try something. They have the power to do it because if it's a good idea, they're going to find friends within the organization. And if they fail, they're going to be protected. So they will not be punished by the fact that they tried something. Okay, so I would say this one is important. And the last one, to be a bit provocative maybe, is the fact that although innovation is much more than technology, I would say innovation today always has a technology background somewhere. You will very quickly, when you try to innovate, find that you will have to manage technologies one way or the other. And I think within the C-suites and starting with the CEOs, at least for Southern Europe, there are still a lot of CEOs that in fact are not really technology literate. And nobody's asking the CEOs to become geeks, absolutely not. But they also need to have some interest into the evolution of technologies, the evolution of the world, because otherwise it's very difficult for them to understand the fact that you're going to, I don't know, transform the organization using metaverse or quantum or synthetic biology if you don't even understand what it's all about. So I think, yeah, innovation and signals from the top is really important to build that culture.
Absolutely. And a lot of sentiment around this as well. Andrew Webber's been talking about being driven from the top, very much what you were saying, Pascal. A lot of points around empathy as well. So thank you, Navin, for your point there. And again, the importance around energy and Esther is coming through very strongly as well. So a lot of interest in that experimentation you were talking about too. And a personal point as well. I think your point there, Pascal, about that alignment and understanding of a foundational level around the different technology innovations at C-suite level, so key. I think really key to avoid some of the intention and action gaps that we sometimes see, and really ensure that alignment across the organization too. So a great starter for our first pillar of conversation, I think. So I'll go on to our next focus area now, which is around innovation journeys and particularly around scalability. We're all on a journey from SME to enterprise, particularly over the last few years. Some organizations are more ahead on that than others, and a lot of people get stuck, particularly enterprise level, when it's about the scaling of innovation. What can we do to improve that particular one and take away that blocker, to use May's phrase from earlier on? Pascal, if I could go for you first on this one.
Yes, so, well, I think we started our conversation by saying that innovation is first of all and foremost a culture that you need to build to have a mindset. And this mindset is all about challenging the status quo. And when you want to challenge the status quo, I guess you're trying to do two things. Either you're trying to ease change and transformation, and I would say you're trying to add value. Because obviously you don't change for changing, or you don't innovate for innovate. You always try either to make your life easier by easing change or adding value. Now, the how you do this is whatever the kind of innovation, and I mean, it's always difficult to define the various steps of innovation, but I would say there are three fundamental ones. The first one is what I would call ideation. The second one would be incubation. And the third one would be scaling. And for me, innovation has always, from the start, to take into account those three steps. Ideation, to be simple, would be thinking out of the box. So the ideation process is about the what-if scenarios. What if we had no boundaries? What if we had all the time we want? What if we had all money? What if we had the talent? How would we try to do that? So try not to restrict. The incubation, the second phase, is much more about testing a few of those bets into relevant use cases. So let's try to put it into something that would make sense and try to test it live. And the idea there is obviously to fail fast. We incubate because if we are to fail, we have to do it now. But obviously the value does not lie neither in the ideation nor in the incubation. The full value that the company would derive is when you scale it and you use it to the enterprise level. And the problem between those three phases is that the stakeholders are not the same. And at some point, the value you're going to create has to be created through the, I would say, organizational units. So the ones that are holding the P&Ls. So if innovation is part of these own part of the company, that may be okay. But most of the time, I mean, innovation can start everywhere. So you have to drive them into the right P&L. And at some point, what I think is absolutely crucial, and what often companies fail doing, is the handover between one part of the company to the other. And I think for me, that this should be planned ahead of time. Like if we do this and we incubate it, who will take it next and when will we give it to that people? So what are the minimum viable KPIs to some extent that we need to reach in the incubation so that this organization will take it for granted that this is their organization's responsibility to bring it to market or to the rest of the organization. Otherwise, the risk, and we know it, is what I call the kingdom of POCs, the POCs everywhere. And I meet with some organization like this. They're trying so many things that in the end, they're killing themselves because they end up thinking that nothing is working. But in fact, they're just failing the handover to the people responsible for scaling.
Excellent. Yeah, it's those touch points along the way that are so key. And those measurements you were talking about there, I think when it comes to kind of KPIs that are more socially impact orientated, you can be even more complex around the measurement there as well. So great points there, Pascal. Thank you. And May, I'd love to hear your take around innovation from this perspective too.
Yeah, thank you. And Pascal said something really important in terms of KPI execution. I want to take a look at this question from a different angle, right? I mean, in terms of new business models, right? So I actually joined Medtronic late last year, right? I've been around learning a lot at Medtronic in the past 10 months now. At Medtronic, we take great pride in knowing that we impact the lives of 2 patients every second. That adds up to roughly 80 million patients per year. That sounds a lot, but 80 million is just a small fraction of the total world's population. We believe there is opportunity for Medtronic to do a lot more beyond the doctors and the late-stage medical interventional tools and devices. With advances in data technology, including 5G, edge compute, IoT, AI, machine learning, immersive AR, VR, miniaturization, robotics, among many other areas, Medtronic can extend our range to a much wider demographic, not only late stage, hospitalized patients. So how do we scale? We need to make a shift from wellness debts patients to wellness wealth consumers. And when we make that shift, Medtronic and many other established B2B incumbent leading companies can actually innovate at scale. And with that shift, Medtronic can go from 18 million patients a year to 1 billion. And to make the shift, we must be more digitally minded, creating the medical equivalent of the Apples and Amazons of the world. And this is a fundamental, radical shift in business models when we want to accelerate innovation at population scale.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, a lot of comments on this in the chat as well. Also talking about areas such as risk appetite of organizations as well. And a lot of points around that technology and the fact that we've got that point of convergence that you were really bringing to the fore there. So it's not, 5G over here, AI, IoT, etc. It's how all these converge and how we manage them in a smart way, accompanied by smart thinking as well. So that's coming to the fore as well. Certainly there's some related research that I've seen looking at barriers of innovation and talking about the people factors. And a key one there was skills readiness and skills confidence, and particularly the different pressures that are placed on certain roles in organizations. So middle managers, for example, potentially the most squeezed, but equally kind of with most agency to affect change as well, because of their kind of brokering role across different roles of the organization. So lots of questions on here we'll come back to in the Q&A, but it's certainly resonating. So thank you, Arturo, Prahlad and Ian for some great points there. And we'll certainly revisit some of those in the Q&A too. I think what we'll do now is we'll move on to our focus around planet and sustainability. I think it's resonating with everybody more than any other point in our history, which is fantastic to see. I really think it's a generator for shared value, business and society aims coming together. So if we dive into that in a bit more detail now, Ernesto, I'd love to come to you first, talk about what you're doing around sustainable futures.
We have chosen an approach that we are called innovability. It's a new word that we've invented, makes innovation and sustainability. We want to innovate to be more sustainable and to make the world more sustainable. I give you what inspired our approach. Every 2 hours, we change the skin of our lips. Every 4 years, we change all the cells of our liver. Every 15 years, we die and we are born again because we change 99% of our body cells. If we don't change, we simply die. But our full body change, as our company must do. So it's impossible to think that innovation is on marketing or is on a side. I think that also the end-over concept is wrong, because innovation must be done by people who manage the business. That's why we have in every function, in every department, in every market, in every business line, people managing innovation at top level, reporting to me, to the global head of this function, of this market, of this business line. Thanks to this, we have people managing innovation in HR, in the finance department, also in the audit, in the legal department. Just an example, in the legal, we use AI to select if we have to go on or if we have to give up about some litigations. And every business line, every function should be obviously able to kill itself every day. About the business model, that is the most important area of innovation. We have chosen with this CEO, since he joined, he has been appointed as CEO, a sustainable business model, simply renewable and producing energy with renewables and using digitalized grids. That's why we have canceled any investment in any fossil fuel plant, and we have switched those investments into renewables. And we have become the private company, the largest private company producing renewables in the world. We are the largest in the US, we are the largest in South America, we are the largest in many countries. And we are actually now in more than 40 countries where we're producing energy through renewables. So adopting this business model wasn't enough. We needed innovation, because if it's obviously environmentally sustainable producing energy with renewables, it wasn't economically sustainable in 2014. That's why we wanted to focus on innovation to make it sustainable. And we lowered the cost of renewables by 60% in 6 years. 60% in 6 years on average, considering photovoltaic and wind energy. These results looks amazing and could be possible thanks to the ecosystem that we have created. We have involved startups, research centers, being humble and opening up our hearts and our brain to the contribution of people from outside. Some figures. We analyzed in the last 6 years, 22,000 ideas and projects coming from our company, our employees, and customers, and startups, big companies, our providers, and other stakeholders who propose to us ideas and projects. 22,000. We have selected just 650 projects, and we have scaled up 250. So a lots of effort to switch from 22,000 to 250. 1 on 100 could be effective. We did thanks to the network of our labs. We have 21 labs around the world, and the network of our hubs, places where we look for startups. We started in Israel with one hub, after in San Francisco, in Boston. We have hubs every more or less in the most interesting innovation ecosystems, and we have physical presence and also a digital presence like the one that we have in Paris, in London, in Berlin. And we every day get ideas thanks to our website focused on crowdsourcing, www.openinnovability.com. We are sharing our tech challenges. How can we better the planet without the contribution of the best innovators? And the best innovators don't work for money. Cancel this idea. You cannot hire the best people because just you pay them. You must provide them with a strong purpose, and our purpose is providing energy without any emissions, so not net zero. Zero.
I love that. I love the power of the ecosystem that you brought to the fore there, Ernesto. I think that's so important. And the way you're reaching out to really kind of bring together those different voices and ensure the right ones are being heard and really being inclusive around that. So important. And we're interested to hear more about that filtering process of ideas as well. Maybe we'll get back to that later. Fantastic.
Just this, before the colleague said that without the CEO, we can't do anything. I fully agree. I use 3 hashtags. The first one is no CEO, no party. Because without the CEO, we can't do anything. The second one is no team, no party. Because without our colleagues and their passion and their willingness, we can't do anything. The third is funny, is chief ignorant officer. That is me. Because I must perceive myself as the most ignorant, to be able to be the most humble and the most open to advice and to knows coming from everywhere.
Excellent. I love that. And again, that use of social to share that message as well. I also think it's really important to build that community and to be really out there and visible about it. So great points there. Thank you for bringing that in. May, if I could go over to you now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ernesto. I mean, absolutely. I think a healthy planet, healthy people, right? We believe that people can only live their healthiest lives on a healthy planet. That's why we need to minimize our environmental footprint by finding, radically new, innovative ways to reduce our operational carbon footprint, cutting our waste and waste usage, and building sustainability into every single product we make at Medtronic. And we are today advancing with full determination, right? The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, aligning company-wide ESG efforts to specific SDG goals, where we can make the greatest impact. By year 2030, Medtronic wants to become carbon neutral, and we also have a commitment to net zero emission across all of our business by 2045, right? And we all would agree that the end game of innovation is to live a healthier, better, safer, happier life on this planet. And it is everybody's responsibility.
Very well said. I love that point about that sharedness and that community. And it takes a village, doesn't it? It is all about that coming together. Let's create that contagion of positive change, I would say. That really came to the fore, what you were saying there, May. Thank you. And Pascal, if I could hand over to you.
Well, I'll be very quick on this one because I think my friend answered very, very well the question already. Maybe I could add that one of the things which is very important to me when we're talking about sustainability is obviously I have a hard time making any difference between innovation and sustainability, because who would think of any innovation that would not be sustainable to some extent? And on the other side, I tend to think that it's going to be very, very difficult to go for a world of, net zero or net positive, because I think if we want to solve the challenge, we will have to shoot for net positive at some point without innovation. And for me, I mean, when we look at sustainability, it's always a mix between how do you say this in English? Sobriety and efficiency in what we do. And I don't want a world in which the only solution would be sobriety, because I don't think we can do only less. That's not possible. So obviously we have to put innovation at the service of sustainability so that we can achieve the right mix between those two things, getting more from technology and at the same time being more efficient and more sober, if I may say so. And that's why also we need to be, when it comes to technology, for example, we need to be quite tough with the way we assess technologies. Like the move around, for example, metaverse and crypto for the moment is a very interesting one, offers a lot of possibilities. But obviously we see that, for example, the fact that for cryptocurrency, we're moving away from proof of work into proof of stake would reduce by 75% the impact of those technologies on CO2 emissions. So that's what we need to do. Same thing for quantum. When we look at the future, we have to look at those technologies and say, how do we make sure we use them in an environment that are really positive and sober, and not just technology for technology?
Absolutely, great points there. And I think supporting that, one thing I would mention as well is we also need innovation around smart measurement. We have increasingly conscious consumers and ecosystem partners. Sometimes the measurement around sustainability impact can be quite internally focused and maybe not holistic around all different types of measures. So I think that's another area where we can bring in as part of that conversation as well. And what I'm going to do now as well, before we go to the main Q&A after Pillar 4, we've got so many questions going in. I'm going to just pop in a couple now, if I may. And Pascal, as I was just talking to you, there's a couple in particular that have come in for you, and I'd love to kind of just bring in a couple now. So one is from Deepa, thank you Deepa, of BMO Harris Bank in the US, and they've asked specifically about your points about how to keep vision and conversation on from ideation to scaling when the delivery team is actually driving that scaling. Would you have any thoughts on that?
Well, Ernesto said our role is to be the chief ignorant officer, as ignorant as we can be. I think one of our key roles is to be a catalyst for all those projects. And I really believe innovation is for all of us within a company. So to some extent, we don't drive innovation with something like driving the orchestra, but we don't play the instruments and the music to some extent. But we can beat the tempo, and at some point we have to keep track of what's going on into the organization. And that's where I think the innovation team can bring some value on making sure we ensure the handover, and obviously then we can check on what's going on. And it's not easy. I'm not saying this is like currently for our own needs within Capgemini, we're trying to define a platform where everybody could rally and understand the life cycle management of innovation. And it's not easy to do, because innovation can be incremental or it can be a disruption. And can you manage the same way a small increment or a big disruption? I'm not sure. But at least we're trying to build that kind of platform that would be holistic, from the ideation into the incubation down to the scaling of things. I'm not sure I answered, but that's how we're trying to do it.
I think that's a great point, honestly. And one quick follow-up one as well from Ian Wallace in the UK. I'm asking you, Pascal, do you have a view around what percentage of development budgets companies should dedicate towards innovation outcomes?
I guess it's impossible. It's very difficult to say. Let me try to answer it with numbers. If you take at the highest market cap 10 years ago, and you compare it with today, out of the top 10, there's only 2 remaining companies. Guess who? Apple, Microsoft. And the new ones are all tech companies, obviously with Amazon, TSMC, Nvidia, and blah blah blah, and Tesla. So 8 of them went away. When you look at the budget of those companies, it's over 10% of their revenue. So it's huge. Now, do I mean that each company should spend that? Absolutely not. It depends on which industry you're in, the level of disruption you're facing, what you're after. Do you want to be an early adopter or do you want to be a late follower? So each company should assess its own position towards innovation and where it wants to stand. So that would define whether you're in the 3 to 5% range or whether you're over 10% like the tech giants are today.
Excellent. Thank you, Pascal. That's fantastic. And I'll segue now into our kind of final pillar, if I may, before we go on to our Q&A section. And in this one, we're kind of bringing together different themes, really looking at tech trends, what these mean for an innovation-fueled future, and advice that we can share with the audience that are faced with this kind of flood, really, of data, of technologies, and tech-driven trends. We've had so much change, as we've mentioned throughout this. So perhaps if I could go to May first this time.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. Yeah, I actually want to take a spin on this question here. Even though I came from high tech before I joined Medtronic, I worked in the past almost 20 years in Silicon Valley on technology innovation, technology trends. And I was brought to Medtronic to really start looking at our opportunities, how we actually put tech into medtech. Having said that, I want to take a spin on this question because history has always taught us that successful companies always put customer first to become better future fit. It's not just about technology trends, software, AI, machine learning, 5G, metaverse. It's actually about the customers. How can we follow where the customer are and where the customer will be in the future? So COVID is changing everybody's life. It's increasingly pushing healthcare outside the hospital buildings into virtual and home-based care. Care is being unbundled from hospital. Is this a blessing or curse to every one of us? So that's really a billion-dollar question, right? Nowadays, we often hear this mantra to disrupt or be disrupted, right? As healthcare is increasingly no different from any other goods and services we consume each day. Each one of us, my advice is, let's actually spend time thinking less about technology, but rethink who we are today and reinvent who we will be in the future, right? You know, how we get there to come out of our conventional business models, our comfort zone, and to really explore new, disruptive, radically new, revenue streams and path forward.
Excellent. I think that's great points. It's kind of ringing in my ears there is the importance of customer centricity, isn't it? So it's not just, as you were saying, following the tech trends, it's following the changing expectations and behaviors of consumers. And probably in the last 2.5 years, we've had a bigger change in there in terms of different acceptability of adopting different technologies, but also what you value from organizations. So much research is showing that it's not about, for example, just function or efficiency or even length of brand relationship. It's about shared value and what you stand for. So I think great points there, mate. That's really, really interesting. Thank you. And Ernesto, I'd love to hear your take on this one.
We, in the last 6 years, we have created an incremental value of more than 2 billion incremental value, considering also net of investments and all the costs of the failed projects. We use in the 77% of the cases of the successful scale-ups, we use ideas and projects coming from outside the company. So first of all, we couldn't plan what technologies we would have used, and we use technologies coming from providers, coming from startups, coming from great innovators, independent innovators, from research centers that we hadn't used in the past. This is the first figure, 77% of the value created with technologies that we couldn't plan before. Moreover, more than 10% of the value that we have created, we did it thanks to technologies never used in the energy sector. I give you an example. we were working with many universities and with many experts on how to eliminate the usage of soda in our geothermal plant. They didn't find any solution till we launched a challenge on our crowdsourcing platform over innovability.com. And a biologist, expert of biology, never been in a geothermal plant. She didn't know anything more or less of a geothermal plant. She proposed to us a concrete idea. Thanks to this idea, we are not using anymore the soda, and we are saving 26 million a year, every year. We rewarded her with 35,000 euros. And when she has got this money, she told me, "Oh, you are a stupid company because I had this idea in half an hour, and using bacteria, natural bacteria, and not polluting the land. This is banal in our sector. You are paying me 35,000 euros for an idea that I had in half an hour." And I replied, "Okay, thanks to your idea, we are going to save every year 26 million. So she was astonished, and she said, "Oh, probably you are not as stupid as I thought." And this is exactly what happened many times. We are now installing storage based on stones, thermal storage. This is a story that I can share with you. We have a hub and 3 labs in Israel. Thanks to this activity in Israel, we found Brad Miller, an entrepreneur. He had an idea. When I have an excess of renewables, I can make the stones, the normal stones that you can find everywhere, hot till 600 degrees. When you need electricity, and you can put water on these stones, and you can have the steam that can be useful for a thermal generation that is not thermal, without emission, using just water and just stones. Or you can use the steam coming from this for other purposes, like heating houses. And this is an innovative way of using, of storing the energy without chemicals, without any pollution, without any emission. And it comes from the Stone Age, probably, because it's just using heat and using stones. And it comes from another sector, that is building and construction. From building and construction, we have found another disrupting technology, gravitational storage. We are working with another company, Energy Vault, that is now quoted at the stock market in the US. When they started with us, they hadn't any customer. We wanted to work with them. We helped them, they helped us, and we are now building up the biggest in the world gravitational storage plant in the United States. And this is exactly another innovation, very useful for the energy sector, not coming from our sector. So what I want to share with you is another story that is very enlightening, inspiring for me. When a journalist, famous journalist, asked Albert Einstein about his upcoming studies, the upcoming research, and she said, very serious, "What are you going to study?" He replied, "I don't know." And he added, "If I knew, you couldn't call it research and innovation." That's why I love this job, because every day we find something that confirms that I'm chief ignorant officer and that all of us are ignorant, because we must open our hearts to the new. And the beauty of the new is that can come from other sectors. That's why we must kill the boundaries between the sectors. I have joined a meeting at Cambridge University with the most inspiring biotech scientists. And I was very well, not only because in the past I supported companies like Pfizer, AbbVie, and the other big companies from biotech, but because I'm sure that the most interesting tech trends for the energy sector will come from the biotech. From the biotech, they are testing how to mine rare earths, how to recycle from batteries rare earths, and how to recycle batteries. Today, we are able to recycle 99% of the elements of the batteries, but we must do it with a cheap cost and in a cheap way. And the biotech industry can help us. So, killing the boundaries, being open, having a crowdsourcing platform, and finding a way to adopt an SDGs as a potential source of revenues. of value streams. I share with you another story. When I had COVID, I was surprised because there wasn't a platform to monitor me, keeping me at home. And from the hospital, they wanted to have me at the hospital. That's why we have launched a global platform to monitor COVID patients. And today in Italy, we are able to keep 40% of the people who should be at the hospital, keeping them at home, thanks to the platform that we have launched. We were not in the e-health business. We are not a biotech company. We are not a medical company. We are eminent. We produce, we generate, distribute, and sell energy. But we answered a global need, a global problem. So I totally agree with the colleagues saying that we must follow the customers and their needs. I think that adopting an SDG is always an opportunity. We have adopted SDG number 7, ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. That's why we switched to renewables and to all the services that can power these SDG, that can answer this SDG. SDGs are not a problem, are a great opportunity to make things come true, to generate revenues and value for all the shareholders, not only the for all the stakeholders, not only the shareholders.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's that shared value proposition. I love what you were saying about that fusion of innovation from one sector benefiting another. I think that's really, really interesting. That interchangeability, I think, is so, so important. Love the examples there, really showing what value of an idea really is. Fantastic. Pascal, if I could give you a final thought on these tech trends and your take on that.
I'll be very quick. I think we have entered a few years ago in a world of and instead of or. And as Ernesto said, innovation is here, there, in the ecosystem, and any individual within the crowd. And that's where maybe the smartest guy is. So that's and we need to live with that new culture. And it's the same for technology. I think we entered a world where we will have fantastic deep tech technologies, and at the same times, we have very smart innovation in the low tech type of thing. So we need to play both spectrum, if I may say so. Things like circular economy, permaculture doesn't really require tech. They can be enhanced surely by AI and a lot of things, but to some extent, this is very smart ideas to do innovation, do things differently that do not require high tech. But again, it's an and. You cannot just build the world for the future based on circular economy and permaculture. And there are amazing deep tech. For me, there are two techs that's going to change the world going forward. It's going to take time to get in. But obviously, the first one is the one Ernesto and May touched on. Biotech and to some extent, synthetic biology will offer a lot of opportunities. And by the way, a lot of questions around ethics and how far do we want to go and what do we want to do. But when it comes to building maybe materials that does not exist or that nature does not produce in enough quantity to solve the sustainability issue, synthetic biology can be part of the equation for that. And the second one is obviously quantum, because as we said, we don't know what we don't know, as Einstein would say. But I guess we've been used to the Moore's law, where power is doubling every 18 months. With quantum, I mean, it's exponential. So we don't see the result after 2 years, but after 6 or 7 years, the exponential way of it makes it a tremendous difference in the power we're going to be able to use to do things that I have no clue about today.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Pascal. Without further ado, we've got so many questions coming in here. I'm going to go to that stage now and bring in more of these questions. And just to reiterate something I mentioned at the beginning as well, any question raised and answered here, there'll be a tree planted as part of the Capgemini Breathe Innovation Forest campaign, which is fantastic. So it really is embedding sustainability by design in our discussion today. I love that. And I'll go back to one of the answers we've had just now. For example, Pascal and Ernesto were talking about innovation coming from, for example, quantum, synthetic, crypto, also the biotech space. We've had a few questions that refer more to how can we get innovation from low technologies. Mikhail, for example, asked that question. Would anyone like to take that as different forms of innovation catalyst, low tech?
I think that if we want to have innovation from outside, from companies or from different sectors or from also our colleagues that usually are underestimated in terms of potential, we must first of all share with the people what are our tech problems, tech challenges. When I joined Enel, the previous head of strategy told me, oh, we must avoid to share our challenges. They are strategic challenges, so we must avoid to share, we must keep them secret. And I replied, if you want to meet a lady, a girlfriend or a wife, and you never talk to any person, how can you find your wife? It's impossible. In any relationship, if you want to find a friend and you never talk to anybody, how can you find a friend? So if you want to find someone who can really help you, you must open up, sharing your challenges, sharing your problems, sharing your failures, sharing everything. So first of all, being an open book and having a digital platform or using existing crowdsourcing platforms, there are a lot of them, and sharing this platform. We use Wakozu, Innocentive, and many other ones that are very useful because on the same platform, we have in our network 500,000 people from 107 countries. Many of them are the same people who help Medtronic or other companies in their challenges. And this is a strong, very strong effect that we can achieve because we can learn and leverage on different cultures, different habits, different way of thinking, because unfortunately, what we know is our limit to what we can change. People are imprisoned by their paradigms, their visions, their knows that they are able to tell other ones and to be told. Unfortunately, the paradigms and the prejudices are the real barriers that everybody has. That's why I love to say that I'm chief ignorant, because I want to kill what I know and I want to be free from what I know. And more expert you are in a sector, more you are able to manage a company, less you are able to change the status quo. Till arrives someone from another sector who don't know what you know and who can kill even your business model. That's why we must kill our business models before that other ones do. I always say that we must kill our children. I obviously love my children, but if the children are your products, your processes, your IT systems. We have even killed our IT department. We have not any IT. We have people managing innovation in every department, in every business line, in every function. We have those digital hubs with people managing innovation in that area. Before, the colleague from Capgemini said that he supports innovation, but he doesn't have the levels of innovation. In our case, I manage also the innovation activities that are embedded in the business lines. And with the matrix organization, I have people managing the everyday projects. And there is not a distinction between people who manage the everyday project, innovation project, and people who manage the business, because they are part of the business. And every month, we have an innovation committee with the global head of this business line, and with me, and with the innovation people, and the first line of the global head of this business line. And we start from the real challenges of the business people. We have a platform, and in the platform, there is the I need button. Every manager, even middle managers, can share the I need. So their needs, concrete needs. And these needs are linked with the strategic plan and are needs with their MBOs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ernesto. We're running a bit short on time. So if I may, I'll interject there at that point, just so we can do a couple of quick fire extra questions. But fantastic example there. Forgive me for intruding there, but we're just slightly getting short on time there. And I'd love to just throw in a couple of quick questions if I may. So one for May, actually. Can I ask a question here from Francois? She's asking about ethics. So this is Francois Airbus. Ethics and innovation, how to decide to limit ourselves, any advice?
Yeah, I think the end game for innovation is not about just profitability, but how we create equity, more ubiquitous access to healthcare, right? And powering good by the end of the day, right? So how we actually drive purposeful innovation. So when we actually at any med tech company or high tech or any industry, right? When we actually make the right, the hard business choices, we always actually put customer first, right? Put the best interest for the planet first. Yes, we want to actually become more profitable, but by the end of the day, we all actually work to make the planet a better place for everybody else. So, and we need to focus on purposeful innovation, and that always is the number one criterion when we make hard decisions. Profitability versus the benefits to the humankind, right? The benefits for people, underprivileged people in different part of the world.
Thank you so much. And probably in a 1-minute answer, Bruno has asked, to what extent do you think employees should be involved in the innovation momentum, bottom-up innovation, essentially? Pascal, could I give that one to you?
Well, by design. I mean, for me, once again, if we think that innovation is a mindset to challenge the status quo, and you want to ease change within the company, everybody has to feel part of the journey. Otherwise, it's a bunch of smart guys somewhere doing there, and while they doing innovation, we're doing something else. That doesn't work that way. So innovation, everybody has to feel they can play a role, obviously. And that's where it's very important. People tend to confuse innovation with invention. So they say, oh, there's no way I can invent anything, so I'm not part of innovation. No, innovation is a continuum of change from 10% increment to 10x disruption. Some people are doing amazing things that are disrupting our own business. Some people are doing very incremental things. But I used to say that, none of us would like to be waken up every morning and has to change his house, his wife, his car, and his job. Nobody can survive eternal disruption. You need incremental changes as well. And for incremental changes, everybody can play a role. So it's all about how do we get organized so that everybody, just like, in the theory of the colibri, the hummingbird, everybody's doing its share. And that's what we're trying to do so that nobody feels, aside.
Well, that's great. I cannot agree enough. I echo what you are saying, Pascal. Everyone can be an innovator, right? And we need to take the right pace of innovation because maturity determines the right pace. If we drive too much, changes in parallel, it's not innovation. It's called chaos. Mm-hmm. So innovation at the right pace. And innovation is everybody's responsibility.
Absolutely. And my final point on that as well, support that by empowering people with skills uplift, and not just skills accessibility, but skills confidence as well, and also with the right change management. So processes like CI/CD can be really effective to support that agile change. And with the skills uplift, it gives you that kind of agility to be confident around the rate of change too. So that's a final point from me. We're almost out of time. So May, Ernesto, Pascal, thank you so much. And if I can hand over to you, Pascal, for a final goodbye from the session. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Well, as always or as often, innovation is bringing some frustration. It's only 1 hour. I told you at the beginning, there was no way we could cover everything. We tried to cover as much as we could, and I'd like to thank Ernesto and May for being with us today. Thanks, Sally, again, for a great moderation of the panel. And if you want to go further on the subject, don't forget that we have just issued our conversation for tomorrow on innovation. There are a lot of great interviews really on innovation. May is part of the people that took part of the panel. CEO of NL is part of the panel as well. And there's a lot of contribution from Nobel Prizes, very young inventors, the advisor to the Pope. So we try to take really an holistic view around innovation to try to define what it is. So I would encourage each of you to spend some time reading through the articles. Thanks again for your time. Thanks again for being with us today, and long live innovation.
Ciao.